Okay, Steve Cohen, you can take it away.
I hereby reconvene the open session of the Gateway Development Commission board meeting. Mr. Caulfield, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Co-Chair. All commissioners are in attendance and we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. With that said, before we turn to the Gateway program update and the next item on today's agenda, I think we have to deal with a report on the minutes of May 12th, 2021 board meeting. And I will now turn to Mr. Caulfield for a report on the minutes of that meeting.
Thank you. Copies of the minutes of the meeting of May 12th, 2021 were delivered in electronic form by Vice Chair Kosha to the governors of New York and New Jersey on May 25th, 2021. The time for action by the governors of New York and New Jersey expired at midnight on June 9th, 2021, at which time actions recorded in the minutes went into full force and effect.
Thank you very much. And with that said, I think we now go to Frank Saker, Steve Sigmund, Suma Mandel for an update on the Gateway program.
Thank you, Co-Chair Cohen, and hello, Commissioners. It's Frank Saker here. I think we have a brief update to go through with you today. Myself, Steve, and Suma Mandel, and provide an update on various aspects of the Gateway program. I might ask for the first slide, please. Yes, we're going to cover a brief update on both Portal North Bridge and the Hudson Tunnel project. Steve is going to provide some information and color regarding Hudson Tunnel delay data that he has collated, and then Suma will refer to some of the action items for commissioners. Thank you. Next slide. First slide we want to touch on was was Portal North Bridge, and in that project, New Jersey Transit continues to lead the Portal North Bridge process, and there's a few updates since our meeting, last board meeting in May. Firstly, the special pre-qual phase of the invitation to bid was completed in the spring of this year. Qualified firms have been informed and received their invitation to bid. I think it's public information. There are four teams. Information on that invitation to bid can be found at the website on the slides. They have also conducted a successful and well-attended contractor pre-bid conference, as well as, importantly, a DB outreach networking event, and that was also occurred in May of 21. Property acquisitions and relocation activities actively underway and are continuing. And I think also important to note that NJ Transit are regularly coordinating with FTA Region 2, the local region of the FTA, regarding progress of the project. Thank you. Next slide. So the next part of the update with regards to the Hudson Tunnel project and its goals of resiliency, redundancy, and reliability for the construction of new tunnel and rehabilitation of the existing tunnel. Next slide, please. Just as a refresher, I think this is a slide commissioners have seen before, showing the existing North River Tunnel in white, as well as the proposed new tunnel being in orange there, progressing into the meet up in the towards Penn Station. Next station. Next slide, please. So, since our last board meeting, we've seen the issuance of the final EIS and the record of decision by both FRA and FTA. This is a major milestone, as we say there, reflecting federal-local collaboration and commitment, and certainly between both the local and federal leaders as well as the staff at USDOT, as well as our partner staff as well. And again, I think I've mentioned before, but the collaboration and cooperation that we are seeing from really all arms of USDOT, our communications with FRA, with FTA, with Build America Bureau are very encouraging, and certainly we're having a very regular dialogue with them, and we appreciate the support that they're giving us. Important point of this, Rod, is that it really permits us to advance on a number of fronts. Certainly, once as we are finalising funding sources, and it's really a key gating item for us. It helps facilitate various rights of way initiatives that we have will be undertaking. It importantly will enable us to contemplate early work packages. And that's something that the staff and partners are working on actively, finding ways to reduce the risk of the overall project. And it's also a prerequisite for advancing our FTA capital investment grant submission. Thank you. For the next slide. Next, I'd like to provide an update regarding the financial plan development. It was originally submitted in August of 2020. The most recent one was submitted in August of 2020. And actually, the same day as we got the ROD, it was a big gateway day. We also received FTA released their CIG project ratings. And indeed, FTA did not provide certain projects, including ours, with a new rating, but instead indicated the rating would be in the category of under review, and giving us an opportunity to provide further project information that could impact their rating decision. We've taken that opportunity to provide that information, to prepare that information and to provide it this summer. And so right now we are preparing that material, and what we're doing is preparing updates to the financial plan that are required for our CIG grant submission, to try to be responsive to those comments from FTA on the financial plan, and to receive hopefully a better rating to allow us to advance. This includes updating our cost estimate and our financial assumptions. It also includes reaffirming the non-CIG commitments from the state of New York, the state of New Jersey, the Port Authority, and Amtrak, showing the sources of funds and the steps to implement those commitments. And that's something that all the partners I know are working on right now. And for example, the GDC Act contemplates an MOU between partners. And that will be one of the items that we are working with partners on to prepare, and certainly that FTA has identified. Our goal is to achieve hopefully achieve a medium or better rating from FTA as soon as we can, and progress from the current project development phase and request entry into engineering phase, including commencing the FTA's risk assessment process. Thank you. So we'll certainly keep commissioners informed on the progress of the financial plan over the coming month or so. And with that, I'll pass on to Steve Sigmund.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it. And commissioners, we wanted to share with you an update on some of the new data that we just received, that the Northeast Corridor Commission did at our request on delays in the existing Hudson River Tunnel during 2020 and the beginning of 2021, obviously covering the period in which the COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact on both ridership and service. But the headline of all this essentially is the more things change, the more they stay the same. There continues to be significant delays in the tunnel, particularly as ridership and service came back after the height of the pandemic. And there continues to be an urgent need to replace this 110-year-old rail link that connects the entire Northeast Corridor. So some of the specifics, delays continued during 2020. There were 12,653 minutes of delay during the entire year, 54 days which were impacted, which is, essentially in line with previous years. The days is a little bit lower, in particular because during the height of the pandemic, there was a pretty significant dip as service decreased, and so any issues in the tunnels were were able to be worked around much more easily than when service is at the level that it is normally at. We continue to see that the problems that cause delays are myriad. That is not just one thing that happens in the tunnel. It is all things essentially, and why we need a top to bottom rehab. And that as ridership increased again in the first part of 2021, so did delays. 3,416 minutes, 22 days already impacted in that first quarter. So 22 out of about 90 was, almost a fourth of days, and significantly as ridership and service increased, so did the seriousness of the delays. There were 10 days of over 100 minutes in those delays. Next slide, please. So going inside those numbers a little bit, specificity in the charts, the first quarter of 2020 saw very, very significant delays. There were some significant days of electric traction problems in particular. As you got into the pandemic, you saw delays dip significantly, and that was to be expected. And then once ridership and service started coming back, and particularly ridership increasing in the first part of this calendar year, well, the delays have come back with it. The minutes of delays and the days of delays have come back with it, as you see in this slide. Next slide, please. So again, getting inside some of the numbers on what causes these delays, it is a myriad of problems, from the track issues and broken tracks and misaligned tracks to the signal problems that we've talked about a lot, including wet ballast sending false signals and the wetness generally in the underground tunnels, the electrical traction, in the power lines themselves, and feeding the catenary, and even this area of programmed work that we talk about. Really, that is from these delays. So, for example, if there is an electrical outage that happens on an afternoon during rush hour, the crews go out and do a quick fix to get trains moving again, but then you schedule an outage, in the subsequent weeks in order to more permanently fix, go into the bench walls and more permanently fix the problem. So really, all of these categories are categories that need to be fixed within the existing tunnel. Next slide. So lastly, I just want to point out again that the delays are not only significant and happening often, but they are very serious. They take up lots and lots of time and eat up quality of life and economic productivity for passengers. So you see, this is a slide of concentration of delays on days with more than 100 delay minutes total. Again, it was very high in the first quarter of 2020. It dips during the height of the pandemic, and now it's coming back up. We already had 10 days in the first part of 2021 that saw delays of over 100 minutes. So, there was some conversation during the height of the pandemic, in particular, about whether there was ongoing need for this project, given would there be more permanent changes in commuter patterns, and we see through this data and through the increase in ridership that Amtrak and New Jersey Transit are already seeing, is that the answer to the question, is there an ongoing need for this project, is a resounding yes. So thank you for your time on this, and now I will turn this over to Suma Mandel to talk about our policies and resolution. Suma?
Thank you, Steve. Today, we're asking the board to adopt 4 policies required by the Gateway Development Commission Act. Namely, we're presenting for adoption a whistleblower protection policy, lobbying contacts policy, public records access policy, and policy on the acquisition and disposition of property. These policies are attached to the resolution as Exhibits A through D. Additionally, as part of the same resolution, we are also seeking approval from the commissioners to amend a provision relating to public notice contained in both the Commission's bylaws and open meetings policy, previously adopted by this board on March 5th, earlier this year, to correct certain ministerial errors in order to conform more closely to the GDC Act. These proposed amendments are attached to the resolution as Exhibit E. All items were prepared in accordance with the Gateway Development Commission Act and reflect review by the two governor's offices and Gateway's project partners. We are continuing to work closely with the project partners to establish the commission and expect to present the remaining policies required by the GDC Act this fall. That ends our presentation. Thank you, Co-Chair Cohen.
Thank you, Steve and Frank and Suma. I will note, just picking up on what Suma said, that these policies have been distributed to all the commissioners who have had an opportunity to review them and comment on them. Before we move to the next portion, are there any comments or questions from any board members? And I'll start by noting, which I have previously, that that we are actively working on the MOU between the parties. New York is anxious and excited to proceed. From my own perspective, working out the details, not only of phase one, but the critical portions of phase two are essential. We need the tunnels without a doubt. We need the rehab of the old tunnels without a doubt. We need a new station to which those new tunnels will be connected. And there are a variety of other projects. And I think that that's something that we should address as quickly as possible. I know Ed Caulfield and Suma have been working on that with a number of the partners, and I just think we should make sure that in the next few weeks we bring that to completion. Any other questions or comments?
Hi, Mr. Chair, this is Marie Therese Dominguez from New York. I just wanted to thank Steve and Suma for their presentation. I think the way that Steve presented the information on the delays really kind of brings it home in terms of kind of how the need and necessity and the purpose of this project. As we defined it under the EIS, it really is about resiliency, creating resiliency to a piece of critical infrastructure. And we certainly saw that during Superstorm Sandy and the after effects of all of that in terms of the how that contributed to the further deterioration of the tunnels. But the need in terms of the delays is certainly defined by some of the data that was presented here. And I think that we need to move forward expeditiously on all of these fronts, as you've just commented, keeping in mind that delays and closures are certainly going to continue to be incurred. And the sooner we're able to address this, all the better. But recognizing that as we move forward towards construction, hopefully someday very soon here, those will all be part of what we have to deal with in terms of scheduling the rehabilitation and construction of new.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Commissioner Barba's here. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and the presenters. That was a good presentation. I have a comment. In light of the recent information of the continued delays, even during times of lower ridership and service, can Amtrak provide additional clarity on the response to the LBA report regarding rehabilitation? Is the repair work to the tunnels more problematic now due to the electric power signal and traction issues that continue to plague the system? I believe a follow-up and a more detailed response as to the level of difficulty for rehabilitation would be most helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And with respect to that last item, we can follow up, or I'll follow up. I think there may be more information. This seems to be a perennial issue that keeps cropping up, and I think the more we can do to explain the status and the reasons why we are proceeding the way we are will probably be helpful generally to the public. With that said, unless there are any comments, I will note for the record that the commission has solicited comments from the public in advance of and during today's virtual meeting. A form for soliciting these comments was posted on the GDC website and was available throughout today's meeting. Comments received by 5 p.m. on Sunday, July 11th, 2021, of which there are 10, have been distributed to the board and posted on the Gateway Program website in advance of today's meeting. Comments received during today's meeting will be distributed to the board and posted on the Gateway Program website after today's meeting. All public comments received will also be filed in the commission's records. Now we will move to the action item for today's meeting. There is one action item, which is adoption of the policies that Suma has previously outlined. Do any commissioners wish to comment on those policies? If not, I make a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll move this to a vote, and I'll ask Mr. Caulfield to please call the roll.
Co-Chair Cohen,
I vote yes.
Co-Chair Graywall-Verk,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kosha,
Yes.
Commissioner Barbas,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer, Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Zarrow.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much, Ed. I also want to note, our deep appreciation for Ms. Mandel's stewardship of this project. I know this has been a task that has required, in some instances, threading a needle between the rules and provisions in two states that are not always identical. And the product really shows a tremendous sense of skill and care by the folks who worked on it. So thank you all. Before we adjourn, I note to members of the media that the media availability will take place on a conference line, a media conference line at 4:30 p.m., roughly 8 minutes from now. And I will, with that note, make a motion to adjourn and ask if there's a second.
I second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Anyone who wants to linger on this call any longer? I don't hear anybody. The motion is approved. The meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene, or some group of us will reconvene at 4:30 on that conference line. Thank you all very much for your patience and indulgence, and I look forward to, hopefully, at our next meeting, seeing everybody in person.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.